1995. Hello, everybody. Don't look at me like that. I know you're looking at me like this.
Not yet, Dad. You barely got here. Come on, let's go for a walk. I could show you what I've done in the stables. We could go riding. We haven't been riding since last year.
Has it been that long?
Bear with me, I've been busy, okay? And yes, I've been watching and ranking American movies from the year I was born still. In fact, I've seen and ranked 342 as of this recording. Okay, so now that I'm here, I'm going to just jump into what I gotta say, and it all starts with a question, right? A question. I gotta question it. What even is counterculture anymore? Can it exist when culture is no longer singular, or is critical understanding on the decrease and that's why the substance wasn't substantive? Yeah, I said it. I think we need to take a critical look at how we're defining American counterculture right now, because that halftime show was a divorce proceeding. How will we do this? By looking at 3 randomly chosen movies from 1995, of course. And where will we begin? Kevin Smith and Scroochy Boochies in the shopping mall.
What is a mallrat?
I don't think I should answer that.
A shopping rodent?
I would look terrible on you.
A food court junkie?
Want a sip of my soda?
A hopeless romantic?
We slept together one time.
That was you?
A flying mutation?
Fly, badass, fly! No!
It's a movie.
Whatever.
Mallrats.
Hey, do I get a chance to field any more questions? Some things you don't talk about in public.
Rated R. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
That's right. In Alaska, we have river rats, and in 1995, we have Mallrats. This flick is what happened when Kevin Smith became an indie darling with Clerks, and was during a time where the studios did that thing that the distributors do nowadays, where they see a new movie by a new talent and are like, give that person money. To varying success, a capitalistic practice that by existing and happening muddies how we define the topic of this video. And before I explain how, I think we need to take a look at the definition of counterculture. Counterculture, a way of life and set of attitudes opposed to or at variance with the prevailing social norm. Okay, so what does America do with this kind of thing, this phenomenon we call counterculture? Well, like most things, if a counterculture becomes powerful enough, the capitalism will eat it and use its powers like Kirby. And when the counterculture happens to be something so pointy that not even Kirby can eat it, capitalism tries to bury it in obscurity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk a little bit more about Mallrats. Considering what I literally just said, is Mallrats countercultural, or is it Kirby after eating some Scroochy Boochies? You know, I think the answer is both. If you ask a person who likes Mallrats to talk about Mallrats, they will, rightfully, talk about how it was a time capsule, about how it's a movie, about the first generation of American youth with nothing better to do than chase happy ever after without obtaining it, where the internet is a novelty and you have too much time that belonged to you. And you know what? I agree with that. Because it's 2025, nobody calls their friends up and is like, yo, let's go to the mall and sit. I mean, it makes complete sense that Mallrats is remembered with that variation of fondness. But I also must acknowledge that memberberry juice is memberberry juice. Let's look at some reviews that came out at the time, okay? Here's what Naruto and Sasuke think about it.
I sat stone-faced throughout Mallrats, not laughing once. I couldn't believe it was the same talent involved that made Clerks. Maybe it's the sophomore jinx, maybe a bigger budget, but the salesmen in Clerks were alive and unpredictable. The consumers in Mallrats are stale, recycled gag machines. Rent Clerks instead of seeing Mallrats.
I'm totally in agreement with you on this, and what you miss in this film is the sense of immediacy and danger and things happening right now. The thing about Clerks, which cost, I don't know, $24,000, is that you sat there for an hour and a half and you were involved in the lives of these people. The dialogue sounded real, the situations developed in a way that was both comic and convincing, and here it's just all sitcom.
Oh. Well, they're a bunch of old coots. They don't understand the youths anyways. This movie, you either get it or you don't, right? They ain't never been to New Jersey. Here's what Ebert had to say in writing, quote, "The year that Clerks played at the Cannes Film Festival, I was the chairman of a panel discussion of independent filmmakers. Most of them talked about their battles to stay free from Hollywood's play-safe strategies. But Kevin Smith cheerfully said he'd be happy to do whatever the studios wanted if they'd pay for his films. At the time, I thought he was joking." Unquote. And while you can absolutely tell that I like Mallrats, I mean, look at that ranking, I must say that Ebert has a point. Mallrats is a pretty mainstream countercultural object. How can I tell? First of all, the gender dynamics of whose story is centered in this work of counterculture are mainstream enough to make it accessible to the kinds of folks who still mentally conform to the Hollywood media industry standard issue racial and gender expectations, except for not wanting to be like their buttoned-up parents. You know, "Oh, my girl is mad at me because I read comic books and play video games. Let's go to the mall and figure out how I'm going to get my girl back." I mean, come on. Storytelling doesn't get much more patriarchal than "my girlfriend is upset, we gotta fix it, bro." And if that's not enough of a counter-argument, I can also tell that this film isn't super countercultural because of this good review that Variety gave the film at the time. Quote, "While admittedly ragged and ribald, it's a picture with an innate charm and honesty that should win over audiences. It definitely plays to a young adult crowd and, based on Kevin Smith's earlier success d'estime, should combine with some crossover art house appeal for solid mid-range box office returns and strong ancillary action." Unquote. One of the clearest indicators that a movie is countercultural but also mainstream is if the reviews on mainstream outlets praise it but only praise it vaguely and don't treat it as an artistic triumph, but do treat it in the way your brain treats a Go-Gurt commercial.
This is one way to eat yogurt, and this is Go-Gurt. You can take it anywhere, because you eat it with your hands, not a spoon. Go-Gurt's the yogurt you squeeze and slurp, grab and glurp.
Use the spoon.
You'll play Go-Gurt, the grab-and-go yogurt. Hey, how do you make Go-Gurt even cooler? You freeze it.
See what I mean? Capitalist quotation mark counterculture is not counterculture. Roger Ebert himself articulated in his written review that the capitalism of the endeavor cheapened the novelty he recognized when he saw Clerks. So yeah, while I do like Mallrats, and I do appreciate its status as a time capsule for New Jersey, nostalgia bait does not a counterculture make, no sir. Mallrats is just a version of mainstream culture wearing a counterculture gumdrop button. But hey, you know what's more countercultural than freaking Mallrats? Okay, hear me out. I know what you're thinking. Alvin and the Chipmunks won a Grammy, and Kevin Smith did not win an Oscar. Winning a Grammy means you are not countercultural. You are mainstream as heck. And in many, almost all cases, I would agree. However, the Easter Chipmunk is an exception. How so? Well, let's start by looking at the plot. So, it starts off with Alvin's grandpa hopping around, delivering eggs, calling himself the original Easter Chipmunk. And Alvin, a creature of vanity, is annoyed by this because obviously it's the Easter Bunny who knows it all and does it all and invented the eggs and the basket and stuff. He tells Simon this, and Simon, the best chipmunk, is like, bro, leave it alone. Grandpa's happy, it doesn't matter. Then Alvin visits Mr. Hoppity, the Easter Bunny's house, and this happens.
Put it over there.
So, how did he come up with the idea of Easter baskets and Easter eggs? That's just brilliant.
Oh, dear. That wasn't his idea.
It wasn't?
Oh, there's the lunch bell.
But whose idea was it? His father's?
Oh, no.
Was it a rabbit?
Oh, goodness, no. Sorry, dear, but I have to run.
So Alvin's like, okay, fine, I'll go talk to Mr. Hoppity myself. He did very kindly introduce himself to us. I'll just go to where he works and talk to him when he's available. But then this happens.
We're here to see Mr. Hoppity.
I'm sorry, but he's left very strict instructions. No one's allowed in without proper authorization.
Look, Buster, Mr. Hoppity touched this hand. I know he'd want to see me.
Mr. Hoppity is not on the premises at this time and is not expected back for at least 72 hours. That is all I can tell you.
What are you hiding, pal? Come clean. Let's go, Alvin.
I mean, arguably, you can already see the countercultural elements, or at least commentary on how questionable capitalist success leads to the creation of literal social distancing via bureaucratic mechanisms between the figures running the companies who could easily answer the simple questions and the consumer who is looking for simple answers to their simple questions. This distance is the cause of Marvel fatigue. This distance is how the pandemic got unnecessarily political, but I digress. This unpleasant customer experience leads Alvin to immediately jump to...
You know what? There is no Easter Bunny! Over there, that's just a guy in a suit!
Yeah, this is when Alvin goes full confirmation bias. I mean, wouldn't you if you had a simple question and got pushed away at the doorstep of the very person who could answer it? So what does Alvin do?
A fork and a knife? I don't think so, Simon. Alvin, where have you been? Striking a blow for justice.
Tonight on Insider's Edition, Easter Bunny or Easter Chipmunk?
Are you crazy?
Alvin
You've got
claims
no
his
proof.
grandfather was the original
no?
Easter Chipmunk. And yet, the Easter Bunny has gotten all the credit. How does that make you feel, Alvin?
It hurts, Susie. But these tears aren't just for me. They're for my grandpa and all the other chipmunks who have been cheated out of their rightful place at Easter. Alvin, this has gotten totally out of control.
Yeah, he calls up freaking Inside Edition, bro. He called Oprah. This escalates even further, by the way.
Tomorrow, I'm slapping that imposter with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit.
And yes, the lawsuit happens. And no, I will not spoil how that goes because I'm going to break down how this is countercultural if you don't see it yet. Alvin and the Chipmunks is a cartoon. And we're in the 90s, an era where the cartoons themselves did not shy away from jokes and parodies of real life ripped from the headline situations that are specific to the decade. Animaniacs, Freakazoid, it happens all the time. But these Insider Edition and daytime talk show references move into the realm of not only parody, but critique, because the manipulation of media to impact our perceptions of reality via television is central to the plot being told. Like, it's both directly and indirectly telling the audience that this kind of content in the social habitat that is us is shifting what we believe about truth, and it is dangerous to manipulate it to your will. You see, the thing about counterculture is that when it is experienced, the witness to the counterculture is firstly able to recognize the piece as culturally relevant. More importantly, the counterculture needs to be opposed to or in variance of a social norm. The Easter Chipmunk clearly states what it is opposed to. What does Mallrats have to say? Yeah, I thought so. Now, you could say that counterculture doesn't actually need to have that impact or be super thoughtful, and that the way in which it exists should be enough. I mean, Mallrats is a scroochy-boochy Kevin Smith quirk fest, and it counters the more polite cinematic offerings. By that definition, however, all comedy is arguably countercultural, and I'm not sure that's exactly true either. I mean, look at the way Mallrats exists. It has a cult following, and Kevin Smith is like the cult leader. Maybe that's different enough? I'm not sure. Because there's another movie that doesn't have much of a cult following that I'm aware of that I believe, by even existing, is super duper duper countercultural.
I had the most erotic dream about him once. He was wearing these leather pants.
I've been waiting for you, darling.
Dana Delaney, Kim Cattrall, Cynthia Stevenson, Layla Robbins, Laura Zane, and Olivia Dabo.
You guys been talking about sex all evening? Giving me the wildest dreams.
Live Nude Girls.
Well, we're all just sharing our sex story.
Can we please talk about something other than sex for 5 minutes?
A new comedy from Juliana Lavin.
Okay, fine. Let's talk about sex.
Okay, so I know I've talked about Live Nude Girls before in my raunch comedy video, and even within that video, I mentioned it as a notable exception that flips the cinematic raunch comedy conventions of its time. And yo, being ahead of your time, that is not only a good compliment, it's one of the most obvious indicators that a work is countercultural. This applies to the Easter Chipmunk too, by the way, as evidenced by the current U.S. president's cabinet pick for running Medicare and Medicaid.
Secrets to shrink your belly. Reveal.
You can have one serving of these foods.
Whether you have a pooch, muffin, bloated belly, or all three, Dr. Oz shows you what to eat for a tighter tummy.
And I'm going to give you one very specific tip.
Yeah, I can't believe this is a sentence that exists, but Alvin and the Chipmunks was right about the insidious nature of daytime talk show sensationalism. Interestingly enough, I also very briefly mentioned Mallrats in my raunch comedy video as a work that I personally don't count as a raunch comedy and therefore didn't talk about, while finding Live Nude Girls raunchy enough to warrant its own segment. Doubly interestingly enough, the raunch of Live Nude Girls goes hand in hand with its existence as a countercultural item. A 1995 article published by freelance economic reporter Richard Natale in the LA Times titled Live Nude Girls But No Takers described the situation perfectly. Quote, Live Nude Girls, which is actually about a bachelorette party, was embraced by many female executives as well as young males, Lavin says. Our problem was older men, most of whom are the decision makers at these companies. A common reaction from these men was that the film is just a bunch of women sitting around talking, a concept they deemed uncommercial, Lavin says. An even more common and troubling comment she heard was from the men who said that women don't talk like that, contradicting the opinions of most women who had seen the film, end quote. The article then goes on to describe how it is these same studio executives who simply refuse to believe that women of status are capable of expressing sexual fantasies in a frank manner. True women of status would never speak of men the way men speak of them. The only real woman that exists is the Alfred Hitchcock woman, and that's the way it should be. Live Nude Girls is a countercultural entity that is so opposed to the prevailing social norms that the studio heads actively buried it in an attempt to push it into the sea of VHS chaos. And director Juliana Lavin was not going to have that done to her film either, so it got a tiny little limited release in theaters. And now we're coming full circle. In their own ways, all three of the 1995 films I talked about are indeed countercultural. Mallrats is countering the idea of, go to college, stop smoking that reefer, be a respectable member of society. And while that is true, I still believe it falls firmly in the Bart Simpson camp of counterculture, where there was an almost collective agreement in U.S. society that eating shorts is kind of funny. We like eating shorts. We like a little bit of boyish delinquency. But give Kevin Smith a little money, and even Roger Ebert goes like, wait, isn't this a little too sanitized? Why is this movie unchallenging? I would also say Empire Records occupies the same space and has the same issue, by the way. The Easter Chipmunk proves that it's not impossible to be actively countercultural even within a Grammy-winning entertainment franchise. Live Nude Girls establishes that those who have the power to shift culture can, will, and do bury countercultural ideas that threaten their patriarchal hang-ups. Even ideas as benign as women in societally deemed respectable careers speaking on their erotic fantasies in an unserious cavalier context. And you mean to tell me The Substance is groundbreaking when the woman at the center of the story is still wounded by the self-inflicted desire for the false power afforded to them by unambiguous sexual/hostile male attention? The Substance is cheerleader capitalism feminism, and so is the entirety of Barbie the movie. But our severe national decline in critical thinking ability allows us to believe, oh, The Substance is boundary breaking, groundbreaking, it's satire. No, it's not. Satire would be if The Literal Substance also gave you diarrhea and homegirl started pooping it up instead of pumping it up, but the crew keeps rolling because they're still into it. That's satire. The Substance is a fun movie with a simple premise, but it is not radical. It is not elevated, and it doesn't have to be. So can we please not pretend it is? It's a masterpiece. It's true cinema. Look, it's our movie. Can we please relax, people? Acting like gore ASMR doesn't already exist and the 70s didn't happen. Like, stop it, people! Sorry, where was I? Oh. In opposition to the obvious and well-known false power of male attention that The Substance explores on a surface level, in Live Nude Girls, male attention is a footnote, a joke, a masturbatory toy. The Substance says, a woman's worst nightmare is what powerful men make her do to herself. The development story behind Live Nude Girls, that says, a weak man's worst nightmare is a woman unbothered. The Alvin and the Chimpmunks Easter Special, that says, sensationalist entertainment television is dangerous and manipulative by design. Mallrats, that says,
Wolverine, snickety, snoring.
What he's doing is imitating Wolverine's berserker attack with his adamantium claws.
Never would have guessed. Come on.
Do you see what I mean now? Are you picking up what I'm putting down, brother? If you are, subscribe. You might get another video in a year. No. I'm trying to be more frequent. Anyways, here are the current rankings of the films I discussed on my ranked movies from the 1995 list. I put them in the corner while I was talking about them, but I'm also putting them at the end here in case you missed them. By the way, reminder, these 3 movies were randomly chosen and I developed the topic of this video from there. Don't believe me? Next video, I'll do it again. I like this format. It's easier than making videos that rank every movie within a single genre or subgenre of a subgenre like I was doing before. It's a nice intellectual exercise, okay? Anyways, see ya.
Knock it off.